To the outside world, she was a lucky young mother. But that night, Camila became the woman who had to clean her newborn son's blood while her husband snored, drunk, in the same room. Camila was 27. She was neither naive nor fragile, but the accumulated exhaustion in the dark circles under her eyes spoke more of her life than any testimony could. She had stopped dreaming long ago. From the first time Ethan crossed the line, her life became a routine of fear. She had no friends. Her mother had died without a chance to say goodbye. Her father had disappeared from the map when she was 11, and since then, she had learned to hide her pain under the rug, just as her mother had for years. What she never imagined was that she would repeat that cycle with her own son in her arms. The house was small, with damp walls and a sheet metal roof. The shriek of the metal gate closing was the warning that Ethan was coming home. That night he arrived late, smelling of stale beer, his eyes bloodshot, his gaze clouded with an inexplicable resentment. Camila had just given birth 3 days earlier. Leo, her baby, slept in a makeshift crib of patched blankets and an old stuffed animal that Mrs. Elvira had given her before the delivery. Camila didn't even have the strength to eat dinner. She just watched him in silence, as if holding the only miracle she had known in years close to her heart. "What is this trash?" Ethan spat from the kitchen, seeing a cold plate on the table. Camila swallowed. She didn't want to reply. She knew any word, even a poorly calculated caress, could ignite him. "I was waiting for you," she whispered. "Don't talk to me like you're doing me a favor," he roared, throwing the plate against the floor. Glass shards scattered, and one grazed Camila's leg. "And you're already spoiling the kid." Leo began to cry. That high-pitched, fragile wail that breaks a person's soul. Camila lifted him immediately, but Ethan crossed the room in 2 steps and ripped the baby from her arms with a brutal force. "Shut up, you're so loud. Give him to me, Ethan. Don't yell at him. Don't you yell at me." The blow came without warning, a dry hit to the side of her face. Camila fell to her knees. The baby in his father's arms shrieked even louder. The scene was infernal. Ethan, out of his mind, yelled and shook the child, until suddenly, in his brutality, his hand struck Leo's tiny body. The crying stopped dead. A cold silence filled the room. Camila felt the air escape her lungs. "You killed him," she screamed, her soul shattered. Ethan looked at his hands, as if he didn't understand what he had just done. Then he placed the baby on the bed, took a step back, and without another word, collapsed onto the couch as if nothing had happened. Camila was trembling. The child wasn't crying. She lifted him in desperation, checked him, listened for his breath. He was still alive, but he had a red mark on his forehead. His breathing was shallow. He was hurt, and she couldn't do anything. "How much longer, Camila?" she asked herself, her face bathed in tears. "Until you or your son are buried?" She locked herself in the bathroom, filled a basin with warm water, and gently cleaned the baby's forehead. Her own blood trickled from the corner of her lip. With every caress, she asked for his forgiveness. "I'm so sorry, my love. I'm sorry for bringing you into this awful world. I'm sorry for failing you before we even started." In the silence of the night, with the broken crib and fear etched into her skin, Camila looked at her son's sleeping face. There, something she had never felt before was born. It wasn't just rage, it was a cold, hard determination. It was in that instant, with no witnesses, no screams, no more blows, that Camila decided everything would change. The next day, no one noticed. Ethan woke up as if nothing had happened. He asked for coffee and she served it. He didn't mention what had occurred. Ethan didn't apologize, not even a hint of guilt. Everything was normal in that house, but Camila, on the inside, was no longer the same. "Neighbor," a voice said from the other side of the fence. "What's with that bruise on your cheek?" Mrs. Elvira, nearly 70, looked at her with her eternal apron and a voice raspy from a lifetime of cigarettes. She had eyes full of wisdom, but also full of guilt. "I fell," Camila lied. "The same fall your mother had for years," the old woman replied without changing her tone. "And the boy? He's fine, just a scare." Mrs. Elvira nodded. She didn't ask more. She knew the silences of women hid more truths than the words of men. That afternoon, while Ethan went out to look for work, or so he said, Camila found an old notebook. She hid it in a bag of rice and started to write. She wrote everything down: the date, the time, what he said, how he treated her, where he hit her. She recorded a conversation on her cell phone, then another. She didn't have proof, but she was going to build it. She had learned from watching TV in secret. She knew if she went to the police without proof, they would laugh at her. "And why don't you just leave, ma'am?" they would say. As if it were that easy. as if someone with barely $1 to her name and a baby in her arms could just disappear. Every day, Camila accumulated more pain, more evidence, and more strength, but also more rage. She began to notice things she hadn't seen before. Ethan had 2 cell phones. Sometimes he'd leave on weekends and not come back until Monday. He smelled of cheap perfume that wasn't hers. He'd laugh to himself while looking at his messages. It was obvious, but she kept silent. She pretended not to know because it wasn't time yet. One night, while heating milk for Leo, she heard footsteps on the roof. It wasn't unusual for cats to fight, but this sound wasn't from animals. It was a man's boots. She froze, grabbed the baby, and hid in the closet. No one else was home. She had no phone service. Her old cell had no signal. She heard someone trying to open the back door. They didn't succeed. After a few eternal seconds, the sound stopped. When she finally came out, her hands were cold. The next morning, she found a note on the fence. "I'm watching you." That same day, Ethan came home with a stained shirt. He said he had been in a fight. Camila didn't ask, but something didn't add up. Who was trying to scare her? And what if Ethan wasn't just violent, but also part of something worse? Paranoia mixed with anguish. Camila stopped sleeping. The baby cried at night. She would rock him while listening to noises in the street. She began to fear that Ethan would try to make her disappear, that someone would come to silence her forever, but she didn't stop. On the contrary, she went to see Mrs. Elvira. "Neighbor, do you know a lawyer who doesn't charge much?" she asked. "I know one who doesn't charge anything if the story is worth it," the old woman said. "Her name is Lucy. But be careful, child. Once you speak, there's no turning back." Camila nodded. She knew it, but she also knew that if she didn't do something, she would end up dead. Or worse, her son would end up dead before he learned to walk. That night, while Ethan slept soundly after drinking half a bottle of whiskey, Camila approached the crib. Leo was sleeping. He had a small bandage on his forehead. A faint reddish mark still remained. Camila caressed him, kissed him, and whispered, "Mama will get you out of here no matter what it takes." She turned towards Ethan. He was sprawled on the couch, drooling, with his belt unbuckled and his shirt dirty. Camila felt a pang in her stomach. For a moment she thought about taking a knife, ending it all, but no. She didn't want blood, she wanted something worse. She wanted him to suffer as she had, to feel the weight of contempt, humiliation, abandonment. To be left alone, forgotten, condemned by his own reflection. She went to the bathroom, filled a tub with hot water, and undressed the baby with care. When she saw his tiny body, the bruises were more visible. He had a bruise on his arm, another on his back. Camila began to cry silently. She didn't scream, didn't ask for help, didn't beg. She just cried. She cried inside, outside, for her mother, for her grandmother, for all the women who had endured the unbearable. "Enough," she said in a low voice. "No more." She washed the baby. She wrapped him in a towel. She kissed his forehead. Then she went out and looked at the house. It was her prison, but soon it would be her story. And the story was just beginning. Camila woke up before the sun, as she did every day, but this morning was different. She got up without feeling the weight of resignation on her shoulders. There was a new energy in her chest. It wasn't happiness or hope. It was fire, a silent fire that prompted her to move with more caution, to observe everything with a different gaze. Every object in that house became a clue, a witness, a trap, or a possible way out. Ethan was still asleep on the couch, his brow furrowed even in his sleep. The television was still on, with a frozen image from a late-night show. Camila took the remote with care and turned it off. Then she went to the kitchen and heated some water to prepare a bottle for Leo. She looked at him in the makeshift crib, still with the bandage on his forehead. His small body moved as he breathed, but at least for now he seemed calm. While the water boiled, Camila remembered her conversation with Mrs. Elvira. That woman, whom so many considered just a neighborhood gossip, had a past that weighed more than many Bibles. Camila saw it in her eyes when she mentioned the lawyer Lucy. That promise of help had become a thin line between fear and salvation. A line Camila promised herself she would cross. With the milk prepared, she fed Leo in silence. Every time her baby drank with force, she felt he was stealing a piece of her strength. It wasn't exhaustion, it was absolute surrender. Everything she did now had a reason. To protect him, even if it meant giving herself to the wolves while she planned to escape the forest. That same morning, when Ethan left, saying he was going out to look for a job, Camila knew she had little time. She didn't believe him. He never looked for work, He looked for excuses, places to disappear, other beds to hide his hatred in. She waited 15 minutes after he left, then knocked on Mrs. Elvira's metal door with 3 gentle taps. The old woman opened the door without a word. She wore a headscarf and her eyes were moist, as if she were always on the verge of crying. "The lawyer Lucy," Camila whispered. "Yes. She lives on the other side of the park. I'll call her, but you have to promise me something," Mrs. Elvira said in a low voice. "Don't back out." Camila nodded without hesitation. Lucy appeared 2 hours later in a white blouse and simple dress pants. Her demeanor was different from any woman Camila had ever met. She was strong, confident, and her eyes didn't search for details, they absorbed them. "Are you Camila?" Lucy asked, entering without asking for permission. "Yes. Do you have proof?" Camila lowered her gaze, took the notebook from her bag, and put it on Elvira's kitchen table. It was a school notebook with drawings of fruit on the cover. "I wrote everything down. Hours, words, dates. I have some recordings on my phone. Not many, but..." Lucy took it, opened the pages, read a couple of lines, and looked up. She didn't have an expression of pity. She had rage. "This is a living hell," she murmured. Camila nodded silently. It was the first time in years that someone had agreed with her without asking for proof, without questioning her, without saying, "But surely he was stressed." "Do you work?" Lucy asked. "He won't let me. He says my job is to take care of the house and the boy. I need a caregiver for my mother. She has Alzheimer's. She lives with me. If you work with me, no one will look for you there. I'll pay you little, but enough to save something. The only thing I need is for you to be punctual, discreet, and keep gathering evidence. Are you interested?" Camila didn't know what to say. This was a door, a crack in the cell. A new beginning. "Yes, I'll do it." Lucy gave her a card with her address and phone number. "Start tomorrow. Tell your husband it's a neighbor who needs a couple of hours of help. Be smart, be invisible, and don't confront him yet." "Not yet." That night, Ethan came home with bloodshot eyes and a bag of potato chips, as if that would fix everything. Camila held back. She greeted him with a forced kiss on the cheek and served him dinner. Inside, she was burning. "Where were you today?" he asked between bites. "At home. I only went to the store for a moment," she lied. "I don't like you going out alone with the kid." "I only went for milk," she said. Ethan watched her in silence. He had an ability to smell lies, but he was also so confident in his control that he couldn't imagine she would do anything without his permission. The next day, Camila left the child with Mrs. Elvira and walked to Lucy's house. It was an old building with a gray facade and dry vines on the walls. Inside, the atmosphere was different. It smelled of books, coffee, and living things. "Her name is Alida," Lucy said, pointing to an older woman sitting in a wheelchair. "Sometimes she remembers, sometimes she doesn't. Don't be afraid if she yells at you. It's part of the process." Camila approached with care. Alida's eyes were lost on the ceiling, murmuring meaningless phrases. When Camila touched her hand, Alida looked at her intently and said, "Do you bleed inside too?" Camila shivered. She didn't respond. She just squeezed the old woman's hand. The days passed. Camila began to move with more intelligence. She hid the cell phone in an empty cookie box. She installed a recording app that started every time Ethan came home. She had videos where you could hear him yelling at her, throwing things, insulting her for not having the house like a woman should. She had records of the days he wouldn't let her out. She even recorded a push, captured from a reflection in a glass pane. One night, while Lucy was serving her coffee, she asked, "Does what he does to you hurt more, or does what you force yourself to be silent about hurt more?" Camila didn't answer immediately. She lowered her gaze. "Both things hurt equally," she said at last. "But the silence, that hurts for a longer time." Lucy watched her with respect. She didn't want to rescue her. She wanted to give her the tools to rescue herself. One day, Camila opened an old box looking for documents and found a letter. It was from her mother, written before she died. It said, "I know I wasn't strong. Forgive me for not teaching you to fight, but you can break this cycle. Do it for yourself. Do it for your son." She cried, hugging that piece of paper as if she could still smell her mother's perfume. Upon returning that night, Ethan was in a bad mood. He said someone had spoken ill of her, that a neighbor saw her leave and was whispering things. He hit her with an open hand, not with fury but with contempt, like someone punishing a slave. Camila didn't scream. She just looked at the floor and recorded everything. The next day when she left, she didn't go to Lucy's house. She walked directly to the bus station. She wanted to run away. She had some money saved. She could take a bus to another city, invent a name, start over. She held Leo tightly. She was about to board when she received a call. It was Mrs. Elvira. "Where are you, child?" "I'm leaving. I can't take it anymore. If you leave like that, he'll say you abandoned him, and the law will listen to him, not you, because you won't be able to prove anything." "Not now." Camila froze. She was right. Lucy had said the same thing. If she ran away, she would lose everything she had built. She returned. With tears in her eyes, she went back to her prison, but this time she returned with a promise never to do it again. Mrs. Elvira was waiting for her at the door. She hugged her without saying anything. Then, sitting in the kitchen, the old woman took out a box and opened it. Inside was a photo. A little girl about 5 years old. "Her name was Mariel," she said. "She was my daughter. She also fell. She also waited. Her husband killed her when she was 6 months pregnant." Camila was silent. Her heart felt heavy. "Why didn't you do anything?" she asked without judgment. "Because it was a different time. Because I was scared. Because I thought if I prayed, God would save her. But God didn't come and I buried her." They both cried. Women separated by decades, united by the same pain. "Don't let me have to bring flowers for you, too." Camila understood she was no longer alone, that there was an army of ghosts pushing her to act. That night, in the darkness of her room, she looked at Leo sleeping and whispered, "Mama won't leave without setting you free. No more." And while Ethan snored, she reviewed the audios on her phone. She selected the clearest one. She titled it Proof One. The seed of pain had already germinated and was growing strong. No one knew, but the end of that hell was getting closer. Because Camila, in silence, was no longer a victim. She was becoming her own salvation, and there was no turning back. The heat pressed down with rage that morning. The fan barely turned, pushing hot air that didn't even cool her soul. Camila got up with the same ritual. Check that Leo was breathing well, make sure the phone was charged and in automatic recording mode. Look at Ethan sleeping with that resentment in her stomach that no longer hurt. It just burned with a desire for justice. She no longer feared as she had before. Her fear had become a mask that she wore with precision. She pretended, she smiled, she cooked, she obeyed, but inside, every step was part of a plan that was growing, and that plan was starting to bear fruit. Lucy had promised her protection, and although Camila knew that no promise was a guarantee, she had begun to believe that she deserved something more than just survival. While washing the dishes, she heard the doorbell. She thought it would be Mrs. Elvira, but it wasn't her usual rhythm. 3 rings, 1 long, 2 short. She dried her hands in a hurry and went to the door. When she opened it, the last thing she expected to see was a child. A boy about 5 years old, with olive skin and large, dark eyes, standing with a backpack on his shoulder, holding a wrinkled piece of paper. "Does Ethan live here?" he asked in an insecure voice. Camila felt the world tilt sideways. She looked at the boy. The shape of his lips, his broad forehead, the same mole on his left cheek that Leo had. It couldn't be a coincidence. "Who are you?" she asked, trying to control the trembling in her voice. "My name is Miles. My mom says Ethan is my dad. She gave me this address in case I ever got lost." Camila didn't respond. She looked around as if someone could explain what was happening. The boy seemed nervous but not scared. He offered her the paper. It was a folded sheet with the address handwritten, and at the bottom, in clumsy letters, the name Dad Ethan. "Where's your mom?" "At the bus station. She told me she was going to buy tickets and would be right back, but it's been a long time now." Camila's stomach twisted. She didn't know if this was part of some plan, or if life had simply decided to show her another side of the truth. She asked him to come in, served him a glass of water, and gave him some cookies. Leo began to cry from the room. Miles heard him and got up immediately. "Is that my little brother?" he asked with a naturalness that broke her heart. Camila didn't know what to say. She wanted to cry, scream, ask 1,000 things, but she just picked up the baby while Miles looked at him with a mix of curiosity and tenderness. When Ethan came home, he had his classic fake smile. But as soon as he saw the boy sitting at the table, his face changed. It wasn't surprise, it was discomfort, as if a forgotten debt had come knocking. "What's he doing here?" he asked in a harsh voice. Camila crossed her arms. She wasn't afraid, but she also didn't have a plan for this conversation. "He came alone. He had this address. He says you're his dad." Ethan didn't answer. He looked at the boy with disgust. "You shouldn't be here," he said, not looking him in the eyes. "Is it true?" Camila asked. "Is he your son?" Ethan didn't deny it, nor did he confirm it. He just said, It's none of your business. Camila let out a bitter, hollow laugh. It's not my business that you have another son? What am I, a fool? Ethan gave her a murderous look. Miles lowered his head. Camila hugged him. He's not leaving. He's staying with me until his mother comes. And you're not going to lay a finger on him. Do you hear me? Ethan slammed the door and left. He didn't come back until the early morning, drunk and yelling that no one gave him orders. But he didn't come into the house. He stayed asleep on the curb, snoring. Lucy arrived first thing in the morning. Camila had called her as soon as it was dawn. She told her everything, showed her the paper, and showed her the boy. This is serious, Lucy said after observing Miles. If this is true, Ethan could have a history of violence with this other woman. We have to find her. And if he was the one who forced her to leave the boy here, we need to move fast. Does the boy know anything else? Camila carefully brought Miles over. Miles, what's your mom's name? Marcella. Do you remember her number? Where do you live? We live in South Hills, in the house with the blue fence. Lucy wrote everything down. She had contacts. In less than 24 hours, she located Marcella. She had been found at the bus station disoriented. She had no tickets, only a bag with clothes and no documents. She said her partner had threatened to kill her if she spoke, that he took everything from her, that he was looking for her. She didn't want to go back. And she says that Ethan threatened to kill her if she came near you, Lucy said hours later. She's willing to talk and wants to see the boy. Camila didn't know what to feel. Part of her wanted to hate that woman. Another part wanted to hug her. When they finally met, it was at Mrs. Elvira's house. Marcella arrived in a faded blouse, her hands trembling and her eyes empty. You were the officer, I was the shadow, Marcella said after seeing Camila. Camila didn't understand. When he left on weekends with you, he told me he was working with me. He spent the weekdays with me. I thought he loved me. He cheated on me, he beat me. I lost 2 pregnancies. One of them was almost 6 months. The 2 women looked at each other. There was no hatred, there was compassion. They shared the same monster. And why didn't you speak up before? Camila asked. Because I thought it was my fault. That if I behaved better, he wouldn't yell. That if I cooked on time, he wouldn't push me. Until one day Miles saw him hit me and cried. That's when I knew I couldn't leave that in his head. Lucy watched them intently. She took out a folder and placed it in front of both of them. We're going to build a case with evidence, dates, photos, recordings. The audios you have, Camila, are powerful. The marks on Miles, the clinic documents, Mrs. Elvira's testimonies, everything will be key. But you have to be ready because when he finds out, he's going to become even more dangerous. Marcella nodded. Camila did too. The fear was still there, but it was no longer in control. Not anymore. 2 days later, Ethan came home drunk, more violent than ever. He noticed something had changed. Marcella was no longer hiding. Camila no longer lowered her head. What's wrong with you? Why are you looking at me like that? He said to Camila. She didn't answer. What are you plotting, you bee? He went straight for her purse. He emptied it. He found the cell phone. He turned it on. He checked the messages. There were conversations with Lucy, photos, recordings, names. Camila tried to take it from him, but he pushed her against the wall. He picked up the baby crying in the crib. So this is how you want to play, he said with bloodshot eyes. If you talk, you'll disappear, and so will he. Marcella tried to stop him. Ethan pushed her to the floor. You're not going to hurt him. Camila screamed. Ethan stopped. He held the child in his arms, but his strength diminished for a few seconds. He breathed heavily. The fury was consuming him. No one's going to believe you. 2 crazy, poor, heartbroken women. I'm the father. I decide. Camila swallowed. She couldn't risk provoking him more. She had to act with intelligence. We're not going to talk, she said, approaching slowly. We're not going to say anything. Just put the child down. Ethan let go of Leo on the bed. The baby cried. He left without looking back. That night, Camila and Marcella knew that time was running out. They couldn't keep waiting. The war had begun, and this time there would be no victims, only justice, or something like it, because what was to come would surpass everything they had lived through so far. The nights were no longer just dark, they were dense. The air felt like lead, and the silence, once a refuge, was now suspicious. Camila slept little, vigilant, with Leo's crib by her side like a sanctuary guarded by her own fear. Marcella slept on the couch, ready for any noise. They lived with the feeling that everything could explode at any moment, and it did. Lucy arrived that morning with a thick folder under her arm and a more severe expression than ever. She didn't greet them with polite words. She just placed the documents on the kitchen table and said what neither of them was ready to hear. Today, we're filing the formal complaint. Camila was motionless, not because she didn't want to, but because she knew what that meant. It was like poking a stick into a tiger's cage. Once they did it, Ethan would not only know they were confronting him, but he would also know they were no longer afraid of him. And for a man like him, that was the greatest threat. You have to sign here, Lucy said, handing them the papers. Each one is your official statement. You'll be giving testimony at the courthouse. After that, this will no longer be just your story. It will be a cause. Marcella signed first. She didn't tremble, but her eyes filled with tears. Camila looked at Leo sleeping with his head tilted. Then she signed without blinking. Lucy gave a small smile, a minimal gesture. Mrs. Elvira also wanted to help, she added, taking out a handwritten sheet. This is her testimony. It talks about the screams, the blows she heard, the bruises she saw. It's powerful. Even though it comes from a neighbor, her age and experience give it weight, and it also includes a personal confession. Camila read a fragment. I also kept silent when my daughter was beaten until she lost her baby. I didn't know how to help her. I haven't forgiven myself, but now I want to help others not to die in silence. She put the letter away with respect. It was a document, yes, but it was also an act of redemption. The initial hearing was scheduled for the following Tuesday. They would have to appear at the local courthouse, hand over copies of the evidence, and confirm their identities. Lucy had managed to have it treated as a serious domestic violence case. It could move toward a criminal trial if all went well, but they knew that process would also give Ethan something they hadn't wanted: time to react. Camila spent that week on high alert. Ethan hadn't come home. He wasn't answering calls. No one had seen him. It wasn't normal. He usually gave signals even in his absence, but this time he had disappeared. He didn't leave a trace, and that worried everyone. On the day of the hearing, the courthouse was cold, as if the walls had absorbed the pain of those who passed through there. Camila entered with her heart beating like a drum. She held Leo in her arms. Marcella walked by her side. Lucy went ahead as a shield. The waiting room smelled of dampness and tension. Around them, other women waited their turn, many with children, others with broken looks. They didn't speak. They shared a silent language, the resignation of being alive by a thread. When Camila was called, she entered with her head held high. She declared everything. Dates, places, exact phrases. She showed the audios, the photos. When she finished, the judge looked at her with a mix of astonishment and respect. Why didn't you report him before? Camila swallowed and answered without hesitation. Because I had been convinced that no one would believe me. Marcella did the same. Her testimony was raw, more violent. She spoke of forced abortions, daily insults, being locked up. She only cried when she spoke of Miles. Everything was recorded. Everything became part of the file. When they left the courthouse, Lucy received a call. She frowned. Are you sure? She asked into the phone. And who saw him? She hung up. Her face was different. More serious, more tense. Ethan isn't in the city. It seems he took a bus 3 days ago. There are rumors that he wants to cross the border, but there are no active warrants against him yet, so they can't stop him unless he does something. Camila felt a lump in her throat. She looked at Leo. She hugged him tighter. She had that gut feeling, that pang in her chest that only mothers understand. He's going to come for the boy, she whispered. If he can't escape, he's going to take the only thing he can use against me. That night, Camila didn't sleep. She put a chair against the door, checked the locks, and turned on all the exterior lights. She had her phone charged, ready to record. But when she woke up at 5 a.m., the first thing she noticed was the silence, an unnatural silence. She shot up, went to the crib. It was empty. She let out a dry, hollow, animalistic scream. She ran through the house, looked in the bathroom, in the kitchen, in the closet. Leo, she screamed as if her voice could move bricks. Marcella woke up with a start. What's wrong? He's gone. Ethan took him. Her tears flowed like lava. She fell to her knees. Her hands were empty. Her chest broken, her heart outside her body. He ripped out my soul, but he's not going to bury it, she said through gritted teeth, like a desperate mantra. Lucy arrived in less than 10 minutes, activated all her contacts, called the police, bus stations, terminals. She showed photos of the baby, of the father. They activated an alert for child abduction. It was a miracle that they accepted the request so quickly. The normally slow system reacted because Lucy had an allied lawyer at the prosecutor's office. Time became the enemy. The hours didn't move. Marcella vomited from the stress. Mrs. Elvira locked herself in to pray. Camila sat on the floor with her face in her hands, biting her fingers until they bled. At 9 p.m., a call came. "We have a lead. An abandoned warehouse near the north end of town. A woman saw him going in with a baby." Camila didn't wait. She got in the car with Lucy and 2 officers. Marcella was in the back in silence, clutching the baby's blanket. When they arrived, the street was empty dark. The streetlights flickered. The warehouse was a concrete building with a single iron door. The police went in first. Screams. Movement. Camila didn't understand anything until she heard it. The sound of Leo crying. She ran. She didn't ask permission. She entered by force. There he was on a small mattress covered with a dirty towel, crying in desperation. Camila lifted him, kissed him, checked him. He was cold, dirty, but alive. She cried like she had never cried before. "I have you, my love. I'm here now. I'll never let you go." Ethan was found hiding behind a pile of boxes. He had a bag with fake passports, money, and baby clothes. "They were going to report me. They were going to destroy me. I just wanted to start over," he said, handcuffed as they dragged him out. Camila looked him in the eyes, not with hatred, but with something stronger, with a vacant compassion. "You were already destroyed long before I spoke," she told him. That night, she slept holding her son close. Marcella stayed in the room on the floor with Miles by her side. No one spoke, no one slept completely, but the weight was different. Ethan was charged with kidnapping and aggravated violence. The trial would begin in weeks. Lucy made sure everything was documented, sealed, and armored. Camila was no longer just the mother of a child who was almost taken from her. She was a woman of proof, of memory, of fire. And fear no longer had a home in her heart. The echo of Camila's footsteps down the hospital hallway was not of fear or doubt. They were hard, resolute steps, the kind of sound feet make when they have nothing left to lose. The silence of the place was thick, interrupted only by the monotonous beeping of life support machines and the distant murmur of nurses speaking in low tones. She wore a coat that wasn't hers, one that Lucy had lent her as a symbol of support, as if wrapping her body in a stranger's cloth could protect her from the emotional storm that awaited her. The hospital orderly led her to room 304. There was no need for him to say it. She knew. She knew that behind that door was him. Ethan, her worst nightmare, her biggest scar, and now her saddest memory. A few days earlier, the news had exploded like a silent bomb. Ethan had been taken from prison to the hospital in an emergency with a traumatic brain injury. The official version spoke of an accidental fall during a riot. The unofficial version, the one that ran through the hallways in whispers, spoke of vengeance. Of old debts settled inside the prison. Of invisible enemies who had decided that Ethan had lived long enough. Camila entered. The room was cold, white, too white. Ethan lay on the bed like an empty shell. His head was bandaged, tubes were in his nose, and his eyes were closed. He breathed with difficulty, at a slow pace that didn't seem his own. For the first time, Camila looked at him without rage. She just observed him. He was no longer the man who dominated her with a look. He was barely a body, a shadow of everything he was. She walked closer. Her fingers trembled, but not from fear, from something else she couldn't name. "Look at me," she said in a low voice. "This is how I wanted to see you, helpless. Not for vengeance, but for justice. So that you would feel, even on the inside, what it's like to have no power over anything, not even your own body." She sat down next to him, watched him for a while, and spoke to him as one speaks to a tomb. "I'm not going to hate you anymore. I no longer belong to you, and you no longer live inside me. The only thing I have left of you is this child, and I'm going to protect him from you, whether you're 3 feet away or a world away." As she left the hospital, Lucy was waiting for her with a coffee in her hands. She held out the cup, and they walked together toward the car. "Did you see him?" the lawyer asked. "Yes. There's nothing left of him. Are you at peace?" "No, but I'm alive." The media found out about the coma. The news went viral. Some called it divine punishment. Others said he was beaten because he had enemies. A few dared to say he deserved it. Others, the usual ones who believe men are victims of the system, defended him. No one talked about Camila, no one talked about Marcella, no one talked about Miles or Leo. Camila quickly learned that the world forgets easily, that other people's pain is only news if it bleeds, that women like them are statistics, not people. And just when she thought she could breathe, life struck again. This time, in the place that hurt the most. Leo began to show strange symptoms. He would bump into walls, drop his toys, and blink a lot. At first, she thought it was normal, that he was tired, that it was just a phase, but deep down something told her no, that something wasn't right. She took him to the hospital. The doctor was clear, cold, direct. He has a progressive degeneration of the optic nerve. It's rare, genetic. If it's not treated soon, he will lose his sight. Camila was speechless. She didn't understand. She couldn't process it. What does that mean? That his vision will deteriorate. There are treatments, but they're expensive, very expensive. And they're not available in every hospital. You would have to leave the country. There are specialized clinics in Canada or Germany. Lucy squeezed her shoulder. Camila didn't cry, but her silence was so immense that it seemed to fill the entire office. That night, while Leo slept, she sat with Marcella in the kitchen. They lit a candle. There was no electricity. The bill was overdue, but the heat of the flame was enough. What would you do? Camila asked. Whatever it takes, Marcella replied. Whatever is necessary. I would sell my soul if it would save him. Camila smiled bitterly. That's what I'm afraid of, that they'll ask for my soul again. Lucy appeared 2 days later with a different folder. It wasn't from the courthouse. It was personal. This is from your mother, she said. Your biological mother. Camila frowned. She didn't understand. I found records. She gave you up for adoption, yes, but she never stopped looking for you. She didn't have resources or family, but she left something. An inheritance, a piece of land in the country, an old house, a parcel. Nothing luxurious, but it can be sold. It could be a start. Camila opened the folder. Photos, papers, signatures, everything was legal. All of it was real. Why now? Because she died 3 weeks ago and told me in a letter to give it to you only if you survived your hell. Camila didn't know whether to laugh or cry. And you knew her? Once. She had the same eyes as you. She asked me not to look for you, that if you found me, it was because you were ready. Camila put the papers away. The world was spinning, and just when it seemed to finally stop, another loss pushed her to move again. Mrs. Elvira didn't get up that Tuesday. Lucy found her in her armchair with a rosary between her fingers and an unfinished cup of tea. She had died in her sleep, peacefully, with the television on. Just as she said she wanted to go, without bothering anyone. The funeral was simple. Few people attended. A priest, Lucy, Marcella, and Camila. Miles left a flower. Camila stayed until the very end. Just her, just the wind, just the memory. On her way back to the house, she found an envelope on the door with her name on it. She opened it with trembling hands. Your story is your revenge. Live. It was Mrs. Elvira's handwriting. Inside was a key and an old photo, a young girl in her mother's arms. Life, with all its weight, had led her through dark labyrinths. But for the first time, Camila felt a door opening. Not an easy door, not a quick one, but a way out, a new story to write. Ethan was still in a coma. The press no longer talked about him. The world had forgotten, and she was finally beginning to remember herself. She noticed it in the way she breathed, deeper, slower, as if for the first time in years, the air was entering without crashing against her fear. Her reflection no longer scared her. She was not just a woman with scars on her skin and in her history. She was someone who had survived something she should never have had to live through. Camila was beginning to feel human again, and in her world, that was a miracle. Leo slept on her chest. The diagnosis hadn't changed. The disease was progressing. The days were a countdown. She had the papers, the numbers of the hospitals in Canada, the approximate budget. She knew what needed to be done, but every treatment, every exam, every trip was a number in the red that her life could not afford. Not with her work at Lucy's house, not by selling the small inheritance, not even by gathering every cent she had managed to save. It was then that they arrived. That morning, a black SUV parked in front of the house. 2 men in suits got out. They didn't look like they were from the neighborhood. They didn't greet anyone. They didn't ask permission. They knocked on the door with force, as if they knew they couldn't be ignored. Marcella opened it. Is Camila here? The taller one asked. Who's looking for her? Ethan's family. Marcella didn't know whether to laugh or spit in their faces, but she took a deep breath, restrained herself, and called Camila. She came down with Leo in her arms. Just seeing them made her stomach churn. She had never seen them before, but something in their gaze felt familiar. That silent arrogance that Ethan also wore like a tattoo in his eyes. What do you want? We've come to make you a proposal, said the gray-haired man, taking an envelope from his briefcase. We know what you're facing. Your son needs expensive treatment. We have the means. We can help you, but there's a condition. Camila didn't answer. She just looked at them. They listened to her in silence. We need you to drop the charges, for the audios and videos to disappear, for nothing to be publicized, for the file to stay where it is. Dormant. Marcella got up from her chair in a rage. And you think you can buy her conscience with money? We don't want to buy anything. We just want to prevent more pain for everyone. You decide. Camila held Leo tighter. And if I don't accept? Time is running out. And so are your son's eyes. They left, leaving the envelope on the table. Inside was a number. Exactly what she needed to cover the full treatment, with lodging, food, and everything. That night she didn't sleep. Lucy went to the house as soon as she found out. She took the envelope from her hands. You can't accept this. What if it's the only way? It's not. You can't sell the truth. What if my son gets better but I break inside? Camila asked, her voice shattered. What do I have left? A healthy son and a broken mother. Lucy knelt in front of her. There are other ways. Publish the videos, publish the audios, let the world hear them. You'll see you're not alone. Camila hesitated. The offer was real, and fear, although it had no home, still visited her heart. It was then that she thought of Mrs. Elvira, of her letter, of her voice saying, Your story is your revenge. Live. She called a journalist Lucy knew. Her name was Laura. She had a digital page that had gained notoriety for exposing institutional violence. She told her everything, gave her the audios, the videos, the photos. She asked for only one thing, that she not censor anything. The following week, the report exploded like gunpowder. It was titled The Monster's Silence, the story of Camila and the Son of Fear. Social media blew up. Thousands of women shared the video. Some wrote their own testimonies in the comments. The story crossed borders. It was translated into English, French, Portuguese. International news channels offered interviews. Camila didn't accept. She didn't want fame, she wanted justice. And then the magic of the unexpected happened. A foundation for medical aid for children in Germany contacted Laura. They wanted to support Leo's treatment. They didn't ask for anything in return. They just wanted to help. An anonymous businessman paid for the plane tickets. Another NGO donated the lodging. A doctor offered free follow-up via video call. In 1 week, the case stopped being a solitary struggle. It became an example of collective hope. Camila and Lucy cried when they found out. Marcella hugged Miles and murmured, Finally, something good. Ethan's family never reappeared. Not a call, not a complaint, just silence. A silence that no longer hurt. On the day of the trip, Camila got on the plane with Leo sleeping on her chest. Lucy accompanied her to the final security checkpoint. She didn't say much. She just looked at her with that quiet pride of someone who has seen a person who almost withered bloom. Promise me you're going to live. I will. For him, for me, for all of us. The plane took off, and for the first time in a long time, Camila didn't feel vertigo. She felt freedom. And although the future was not yet written, she knew something had changed forever. She was no longer just a woman who survived. She was a woman who had decided to live without chains, visible or invisible. The plane landed with a dull vibration. The sky over Frankfurt was gray, but not cold. Camila felt the change in climate as a sign. The world would not stop for her story, or for her pain, or for her son. And yet, the mere fact of having gotten there was a victory. The international clinic that would receive them had completed the paperwork without asking too many questions. They knew what Leo needed and had the equipment to give it to him. They only asked one thing of Camila, patience. During the first few days, she slept little. She watched Leo as they ran tests, as the doctors spoke among themselves in a language she didn't understand, but interpreted through their gestures, their eyes, their long pauses. The news was neither good nor bad. There was a possibility, a small one, but there was one. The treatments began. Drops, exams, a special diet, exercises. And as the days passed, Leo began to respond. His laughter returned. He no longer bumped into furniture. He reached for his toys. He followed the light with his gaze. Camila didn't cry immediately. She waited until she was alone in the room, in silence, when Leo was sleeping, hugging a stuffed animal a nurse had given him. Then she allowed herself to release the knot that had been tight in her chest for years. For months passed. 4 months without blows, without screams, without threats. 4 months without waking up in fear. For months of a calm routine, of walks in the park, of calls with Marcella, of messages from Lucy. The day she was discharged, the doctor gave her an envelope. This treatment was covered by us, but there's more to do. It's not certain he will regain everything, but he will have a dignified life. The rest is your story. Don't forget it. Camila left the clinic with her son by the hand. That image, so simple, so common for others, was the greatest symbol of freedom she had ever known. She returned to the country without telling anyone, neither the media nor her acquaintances. She came back in silence. She entered through the back door of life. She no longer needed anyone to applaud her. She just wanted to live and heal. Marcella received her at the station. Miles ran to hug her as if they were blood relatives, and they were. Blood shared in the wound, not in the DNA. Women like them don't choose each other. They find each other. They settled on the inherited land. An old house with cracked wood, broken windows, and the smell of abandonment, but with a large yard and a silence that didn't hurt. With the help of neighbors, they fixed the kitchen, painted the rooms, and planted flowers. The walls began to have color and the house meaning. Lucy arrived a month later. She came with books, papers, and a rolled-up poster. "I have an idea," she said as she unrolled the poster on the table. The Elvira Center. A shelter for invisible women. Camila read it. She closed her eyes. She felt a tingling in her chest. A shelter, yes, for women who don't know where to go. For women like you, like Marcella, like Elvira. I want you to run it. Me? Who better than you? You've already done it without a building. You just need a space. Marcella smiled. I can cook and take care of the kids when they arrive. Camila looked at the poster. She remembered Elvira's voice, the broken crib, the accumulated fear, the locked doors, and she thought of all the women who were still out there, feeling they couldn't speak. Let's do it. They opened with the bare minimum, a room with 2 chairs, a table, a coffee maker. But every woman who arrived brought her story, and every story made them stronger. Some just wanted to talk. Others needed to sleep without fear. Some arrived with children, others without a man. All of them needed the same thing, to be seen. Camila didn't talk much about Ethan, but she didn't deny him. Every time someone asked what motivated her to create the shelter, she would reply, I survived, and that obliges me to make sure others do too. One morning, she received a letter from the public hospital. It said that Ethan was still in a coma, and that they needed a relative to sign certain documents. Legally, there was still no conviction. The trial was suspended until he woke up, if he ever did. Marcella read the letter quietly. Are you going to go? Yes. Why? Because there's still something I have to do. She went alone. She walked through the hallways with a firm step. She knew exactly what she wanted to tell him. Ethan was the same, thinner, grayer. A breathing tube in his throat, eyelids closed, his chest rising and falling like a metronome without music. Camila sat down next to him, placed a notebook on the table. Inside were drawings by Leo, loose phrases, invented stories. Then she spoke to him. This is your son, the one you hit without thinking, the one who cried without understanding, the one who grew up without your voice. This is the boy who now runs, reads, and plays. The boy you lost, but whom I saved. She took a book from her bag, one that Leo loved. I'm going to read this to you. Not for you, but for him. Because I want that if any part of you is still breathing, it knows that you were defeated where it hurt you the most. She began to read page after page without hesitation. Every word was a victory. A closed wound, a step toward life. She came back several times, always with books. Leo began to accompany her. He would sit by her side, tell her what he had done during the day. Sometimes he would laugh, sometimes he would sing to him. She never knew if Ethan could hear, but it no longer mattered. One afternoon, Lucy arrived at the shelter and found her hanging a new curtain. Camila, I have to ask you, she said as they had tea. Do you feel like you won? Camila looked at her, took a deep breath. She watched Leo playing with Miles under the tree. I didn't win a battle, she replied. I won my life. And with that, I have everything. Lucy hugged her for a long time without saying anything else. The sun began to set. The wind rustled the leaves, and in the midst of it all, Camila felt something she had never felt so clearly before, peace. The story was not perfect. Not all the wounds had healed, but the cycle had been broken. The chain was cut, the silence was defeated. And Ethan, trapped between life and nothing, became the monument to his own defeat, not for what they did to him, but for what he couldn't destroy. Camila was no longer the woman who feared the night. She was the one who lit lights for others. And that was revenge of the purest kind. The kind done with dignity, with love, with life, right where it hurt him the most. That was where she won.